Okay. Okay, hi. I'm Paul again with another episode of Plusma-cast, the show where I feature professionals of the creative industry to share their stories and experience. So today I have Michael Ooi, who is both, a veteran of the game industry, the electronic entertainment industry, and also part-time educator of it. Okay?
Yes.
So, so again, as usual with Plusma-cast, we cover the story from idea to skills to vocation. First of all, thanks, Michael, for being part of the show.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be invited here today.
You haven't done too much of these type of...
Not really.
Okay, so, all right, it's a new experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I said, for Plusma-cast, we start at the very beginnings. What got you perhaps inspired, or how do you get the idea to be part of the games industry?
Okay. For me, I've always been playing games. I got introduced into computing and use of computers and playing games at a very early age. Like, for example, when I was 6 years old, my father already brought in a computer.
Okay.
And that was like 1980s.
The 80s? Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up with computers quite a lot. So I was interested in playing games. I was also very interested in pen and paper role-playing games. You know, like Dungeons and Dragons and all that.
Oh yeah, back in the 80s.
Yeah, back in the 80s. And what I found was I was very happy when I created games, especially when my players who played it, because I was a game master. So I created campaigns and stories and things like that for my players to play.
Right.
And it gave me a very strong sense of fulfillment when I see the players enjoying the games that they are playing. So that made me want to make games. All right. So, but during that time, it was a bit difficult because there are very few game companies, mostly just indie companies.
Yeah.
And one day, I just happened to see a advertisement for a game level designer in a hobby shop.
Okay.
One of those game shops where you play Magic the Gathering and
Wait, this back in the 80s or 90s?
That was in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
later on, much later. After I graduated lah, and basically I just dropped everything and joined that company.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So from then on, okay, so that was developing games in the pen and paper setting. And I mean, in the pen and paper setting, because hey, the station is easy lah. But then, how did you take it to the next level? Because it was from paper into the cover vocation lah.
The company that I dropped everything. Okay, that I dropped everything to join. Actually, they were doing a massively multiplayer online game at that time, MMORPG.
Okay.
So they had a problem too. They didn't have many people who understood games development, because during that time there were, other than that company who was trying to start up to do a MMO, there was only one other official game development company, which was Game Brains in Malaysia.
Okay.
Okay, and they do mostly porting.
Right.
Okay. The other game developers in Malaysia were one or two indie companies. So they had a problem finding people who are game designers, which is what I specialize in games design, which is creating the systems of the game, the mechanics, the rules, the storyline, the gameplay. So because of my experience playing role-playing games in the past, and the moment they read my resume of all the different RPG games I played, they said, okay, you're perfect for this job. Okay. No other people have that amount of experience. So in a way, it's my interest in role-playing games that allowed me to come into this. But we also face a lot of difficulties because since games industry was totally new in Malaysia at that time, we had to learn a lot on ourselves, by ourselves. So we went to forums, I went to forums, asked questions on gamedev.net and things like that, read up articles, read up blogs from other game designers on how all these game systems are like. And we did a lot of experimentation and work. It's not actually easy to make games because like all things, it's easier to use something, but it's hard to create it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just pull it back a bit. Okay. So your experience from playing games then gave you the experience to understand, okay, what goes into a game. Okay?
Yes.
You know, the rules, the idea, the themes.
Yes.
Okay. But as you said, you know, you're involving yourself in a software company.
Yeah.
You know, a software company that makes games. Is there something else like you know, is there other necessary skills like computing or such that you needed to familiarize yourself with?
Yes. Okay. There were two things that helped me that I studied. When I was studying, I had a diploma in computer studies, NCC diploma from computer studies. So I have a bit of a programming background.
Right.
When I did my degree, which I did not complete, actually, by the way, I'm a dropout. I was studying marketing because I have an interest based on my old gaming experience on wanting to find out why people do things. Okay, behavioral studies, basically. So I studied marketing, and both of these I found to be very valuable in my career as a games designer. So computer studies, because games are softwares, you need to understand how software works. You need to understand what is possible and what is not. And as well as you are basically, when you design a game, you are actually creating a product, which is a software product. So if you do not know enough, at least the fundamentals of what a software is and how it is created, it's going to be very hard for you to create a product based on that.
Okay.
Yeah. The marketing part helped a lot because it gave me an insight into the entertainment industry. Because the games industry is not just IT, it's IT plus multimedia plus entertainment. It's three industries combined into one. So you need to have quite a wide variety of skill sets in order to be good in this industry.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, you described that, hey, you know, all these various skill sets, various interests come together. So what are some of the experiences what are the experiences that you can share about working professionally then?
Okay. This industry is tough.
Okay.
White paper done a couple of years ago showed that this industry has a turnover rate of over 70% annually. Okay. As in people leaving the industry after working in it.
Come in and come out.
Yes,
70%.
70%, which is one of the highest in the world. Because imagine, IT industry is already tough. People work long hours and work very hard in it. Okay. And then on top of that, multimedia industry like advertising, film, and all those things is also tough with a whole set of problems. And the entertainment industry is itself quite difficult because there's so much vagaries and uncertainties in it. You are combining three industries into one.
Three high
stress industries into one. So when I first started working in a game company, we were pulling like 12-hour to 16-hour days shifts. Okay, doing the work that needs to be done. And we were quite successful there at that company because what happened was we were the first fully Malaysian development company to actually create an MMORPG from scratch. From the technologies, the game engine and everything to the gameplay, the art, everything was done here. Right. And we were quite, in a way, I don't know if it's boasting or not, but I'll say that that game that we made there was what kicked off a sudden boost in the game industry here. Because people from all over the world started realizing, hey, Malaysians can make games too.
I mean, this is what the capability...
Yeah, these are the capabilities of the people there. So, we had the president of EA Asia, Southeast Asia region, come down to check out the game, talk with us and all those things. And quite a number of other people, including the producer of Far Cry, at that time, I think Chris Natsume. So, and from those meetings, meetups and all those as well, I learned quite a bit more about how the industry and business is. So back to the, sorry, went off tangent a bit.
No, it's okay. I think it's still useful insight.
Yeah. Back to what we learned there and what the experiences was like. I think what really pulled us through a lot of the difficult problems, because we were learning. We didn't have, during that time, we didn't have a lot of other people in the industry in Malaysia locally to help us, because there's no one to ask questions when you have problems, when you hit issues and you hit bugs.
Right.
So we had to find ways to solve that ourselves.
Okay.
So problem solving is probably one of the skill sets that really got developed during that time. Trying to figure out how to use the technologies that were emerging and come out. So it was very stressful, but at the same time, for me personally, it was very fulfilling, because this is something that I really wanted to do. I played a lot of games myself, and I found that I want to make games, hopefully, so that other people can enjoy playing the games that I play. So I think that feeling, that passion for it, is what pulls me through a lot of the hard times during that period of time. Yeah. So generally, that's the experience. Also, one thing I found is the international game development community is actually very supportive.
Right.
When you ask questions, when you post problems up on the forums and all that, there are a lot of people who are willing to help, as long as you don't put up stupid questions. Make sure that when you ask questions on the forums and all that, make sure that you show that you have already thought through the problem and attempted to solve it yourself.
Right.
Before asking questions out there.
So does it, so when you say stupid questions, does it mean try to avoid asking low-level questions?
Yes. Yeah. Things that you should already be able to know or find out from other sources by yourself. Because there's one thing is, in the game development community, we are always willing to help others, because we want this industry to grow. Okay, and we want to support others because we understand how hard this industry is. So we are always willing to give a helping hand.
Right.
However, because we are also under a lot of stress and pressure in our work, okay, we don't want to, have people who just come and ask questions without thinking through it in the first place, right? So I believe most developers out there also feel the same way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You mentioned quite a few things. Okay. One of the things I personally want to ask that it's a highest. What I've read and what you've mentioned is that it's a high turnover job, and I wonder, because part of the conditions is that people are sort of recruited on a project basis, and so there's oftentimes an inflation of studio headcount because to complete the project. But then once the project is done, then there's sort of like a mass, there's a
mass number of people that
that's let go lah. So is there a way through this situation, or is that is it okay that the industry functions?
Okay, that actually depends on how the game studio is structured. For most small studios, you won't see that type of an inflation.
Okay.
Basically, they will hire what they need, and then what they will do is they will outsource the extras that they may not have the skill or talent to do.
Right.
So those aren't really hired in, but they were outsourced to freelancers or things like that. You will normally see this sudden expansion in big studios.
The AAAs are.
Yeah, the AAA studios and all that. Because they are concerned over quality. Makes it very difficult for them to just outsource work out to unknown people.
Right.
All right. And if you outsource to a large studio, large outsourcing studio, it just increases the cost by quite a lot. So what they do is they will probably hire more people in for a project. But even then, for these AAA studios, they won't hire simply to just hire and then let them go. Because that is, people are actually the true resources of a game development studio. Talents. Okay, talents are very important. because that's all the asset. We depend on talents for a studio to survive. Without proper talents, the game, the quality of the products that you create is going to be crap.
Right.
So when they bring people in, it takes time for them to train them how to do things and all those things. So they will not let people go easily. Normally, when you see cases like this, it's normally because they were expecting that they needed that studio size, but because of, you know, maybe the economy is not doing well, or the games that they're doing are not doing well, and they're not generating enough income to fit their projections, and that's why they had to let go.
Right.
Yeah. So generally, that is the cause of large people getting go. You'll see that more in animation, actually, people hiring and then letting go, more than in game studios. Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, as you have mentioned that it might be more to the case for animation and game studios, but it does happen. What advice might you have for someone who is experiencing this?
Who is experiencing this?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, skill sets. Okay. You need to improve your skill. Now, one thing about the game industry is this: is not quite science, it's not quite art, it's a combination of two. It's like craft.
Right.
So for a craftsman, your ability to come out to master your work, to create a craft of high quality that is what people value you.
Right.
And if a studio is letting people go, all right, retrenching people or whatever, they will want to keep their most skilled artisans, you can say.
Okay.
Yeah, rather than the what. So this is true in any industry. The most skilled are the ones, the most critical for the studio to actually survive are the ones that are kept.
Right.
And those that are least that they can afford to do without are the ones that they let go. Now, saying that skill in your craft is one thing. The second most important thing for a game development studio or game developer is actually the team. Because games have become so complex and sophisticated, you cannot really make a full-fledged competitive commercial game alone.
Right.
You need skill sets from different people: artists, sound engineers, game designers, game programmers. And there are also specialists in certain fields, like for example, if you want to do VR or augmented reality,
Okay.
Or even networking, server-side codes. So there are a lot of specialties. You need a team. So the next thing that is important after your skill in your particular field is your ability to communicate and work together with others.
All right.
Yeah.
So as much as the software and the technical skills, or even the artistic skills,
Yep.
you're gonna need the ability to relate.
Yes, to relate to the team, to be able to communicate well with them, because that's always one of the barriers: communication, misunderstanding, and things. Those things slow down work or cause problems within the team. The ability to have the initiative to find solutions and work well together in a team. So those are very, very important for game development, because you can't work in isolation. Okay, things need to mesh together very well when many people are working together. Yeah. So communication, the ability to relate to others, to emote with each other and help each other out to solve problems for the sake of the product you are creating.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, I mean, you just related that. Okay. On the one hand, you have to be as best as you can be, and that's self-development. And even if it does, and if you don't make the cut, then
I'm sorry lah. That is the harsh realities of it, of any industry. For a business, they need to try and survive. And costs, I keep trying to tell my students this: when you're running a business, the money in the business is like, the blood in our bodies.
Okay.
The business requires that to keep running.
Okay.
Without money, it dies. I mean, the people working there needs money to be able to, continue living, okay, to have a comfortable life, to buy food and all those things. Then there are also other costs that you need to sell your product, market it, and things like that, publish the game. So costs is something that a company must keep in mind all the time. Especially since making a game, let's say a AAA game, research by IGDA, which is the International Game Developers Association in US, have found that a AAA game takes an average of at least 20 million US dollars to make.
Okay.
All right. Now, imagine if that game doesn't sell. That's 20 million US dollars that the investors put into a company that will fail, that's down the drain,
right.
Gone. Okay. So, making a game is a very high risk, very high capital activity.
Right.
And if it's not done well, your company will basically can bankrupt just in that one mistake.
Right.
Yeah. One product that doesn't run and you'll be in the red for God knows how many years before you can recover 20 million US dollars. Right. So that is the inherent difficulty of this, and that's one of the causes for the high stress rates and the high turnover rates.
Right.
So you really need to be good at what you do for this industry. Truthfully, if you are a programmer, for example, you can actually make more money, easier, less stress in the IT industry
than games.
Than games. If you are artist or animator or 3D graphic, it's easier for you to find jobs in the animation industry or the multimedia industry. And well, game designers got no choice that you're designing games itself, right? But one of the key things about this game industry is you need to be curious. You want to keep improving because technology advances so much and so fast.
Right.
New things keep popping up all over the world. You need to be curious enough and have the initiative to learn a lot of new things, to study and improve on your own, because this field is so wide. Making a game, technically anything in this world can be turned into a game.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're not the type of person that keeps improving, keeps trying and learning new things, then it becomes very hard to stay in this industry, to keep your skills level up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I want to ask personally, you mentioned that AAA is a high cost, high risk investment to create a product. Whereas what has been happening of late is the rise of the indies.
Yes.
The independents. There are smaller studios with perhaps more inventive game forms.
Yes.
So there's these two contrasting directions of the industry. Okay, and perhaps the point what I'm trying to get at is the student graduate. You've taught a student who's then now out in the industry to make games. How might he make a choice between going with perhaps a AAA or an indie?
Okay. All right. AAA and indie, although they still both make games, in a way, the way they work is actually very, very different.
Yes.
So for most indie studios, how they are run is, we call them shoestring or bootstrapping.
Yep.
Okay. So games cost so much to make. So what they do is they try to save as much cost as possible. Salaries will tend to be quite low, and the workload is, because you have smaller company, smaller group of people, the responsibilities and the roles that are needed, one person will probably have to take several roles at one go.
Overlap.
Yeah, it overlaps and things like that. So for indie studio, they can't make games like the AAA studios because of the amount of money that they have. So they are smaller studio, the games and what. However, that also gives them freedom, because the cost for them to develop a game is so much lower. They can afford to be creative, to come out with something new. They may not be able to come out with the quality and the amount of content that the AAA studios can come out with, but they can come out with something experimental, for example. Okay, they need to do that because one is, since they can't compete in terms of, let's say, graphics quality, or content quality. With a AAA studio, they need something special in order to attract players to play. Whereas for the AAA studios, they have a problem. Because they are taking so much money to make this game, they are risk adverse. They cannot simply, try an experiment that may not succeed. Their investors have killed them for that. So what happens is they have to take a safer route. They normally use a formula, we call it in the industry, in order to make a particular type of game, normally by copying other games that are successful, because they have to justify what they are doing to their investors for putting so much money into that one product. So the big company, the good thing is they have money for the resources. So it works pretty much like any large corporation. Their structured roles and all those things are fixed, and there are enough people to take up all the roles, so you don't have to overlap roles and do other responsibilities. So it's pretty much like a job there, and the jobs there can be quite, for creators, may become a bit boring because you're doing the same thing over and over again, because everyone has their specialized roles. Like an asset creator for environment may be making 1,000 trees, out of which 3 trees are used in the game. But that was how they get the quality, you see. The 3 best trees out of 1,000 trees becomes the use in the game. So it can become repetitive there. For indie studio, on the other hand, because you have the mixed roles, sometimes this guy is tired or he may fall sick. Someone else has to take up his role, So you get to try a lot of different things. And the experimental nature, because you're a small studio, small simple product, cheaper product, like less risk product, you can experiment, you can try using new technologies, new game formats, a lot of it may not work. All right, but if the company is well managed, that means they are able to manage their finances and all those things, to take all this into consideration, then you can run 2-3 times before you start getting desperate. So, but this is also important because without the indies experimenting with new forms and new technologies and new ideas, the AAA games won't grow or change. So these guys bring changes in, and that helps the game industry to become stabilized that way.
Because a personal observation in terms of following a bit of media on this topic is that I follow a channel talking about indie games, and they're so, you could almost say they're beautifully crafted pieces. And then on the other hand, I read news about the AAAs have had a few major blunders, especially on recent. So that's where the question came about. I said, okay, fine. How do you judge, or how do you make a decision? Going that way. That's where the question came about.
So choosing between AAA and indie games. If you are more worried about stability, and you want to learn how to make or be a part of these super big AAA games like Final Fantasy and things like that, if that was a dream, then go for AAA studio. You still learn things there on how to be creative and all those things. You may even also learn things that are quite useful in a AAA studio because they are quite optimized in the way they do things. Because over the years, as they grew big or they have become big, they've got experts coming in, that they are able to hire experts that can streamline their work process as well. So there are a lot of valuable skills you can learn, how to optimize your codes or how to best do your art assets. What are the production pipelines like, an efficient production pipeline, how to deal with problems, changes, things like that. So AAA studio helps you with that. However, you're just stuck in your whatever role that you have been assigned there. So your ability to experiment and things like that is not there. To innovate, you are just supposed to sit there, do the work that you have been assigned, and do it well. So that is the pros and cons of going to a AAA studio.
What about the prospect of, as they say, leveling up or internal promotions?
Internal promotions, like all companies, yes, you can do that. But like all companies, there are much fewer jobs at the top than at the bottom. Okay, so if you want to go up the promotion ladder, most people, let's say for example, game artists,
right?
You'll probably come in as a junior artist, okay? Then you'll become a senior artist, and then after that you'll be maybe a team lead for a small team. All right. For you to want to go further up, you have to wait for someone to retire.
Okay.
Okay, or the company wants to expand. Then they need new leaders, new teams. Then if you show the right qualities and qualifications, leadership, ability to manage your people, ability to
deliver,
to get your team to deliver, okay, and your skill sets are at the level where you can actually guide people, then they will bring you to start a new team.
Okay.
Yeah, for a new project or things like that. But other than that, you have to wait. There will always be a point where you will not be able to raise until an opportunity presents itself.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's possible. However, if your skill sets are there, okay, you feel that you already have the skill sets, you can lead people and you are at that position. What people do in AAA companies to get to a higher rank is to actually jump company, unfortunately. All right, because in these companies, if the top positions are already filled, you can't go up.
Right.
So the only way is to look at another company where they have a top position available.
Right.
And that allows you to then try to approach that company and show this is what I am able to do, and then hopefully get that position.
Okay. So versus, let's say again, versus the indie where you might be filling out certain roles or overlapping in certain skills.
Yep.
And would it be fair to say that there might be a more equitable opportunity?
Yes, definitely. Because you're overlapping many roles, you're actually learning more about how the business works.
Right.
So in that sense, you're actually being equipped with the skill sets to sit at the higher position. Whereas in a AAA company, that opportunity is very low because you're just doing the same thing over and over again.
It might take a longer
time for you to actually absorb all the other things, and you actually need the initiative to try and figure it out. Get to know your boss or your managers or your producers and learn about what they do and how they do things. And not many people do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the only way you can get exposed to the different levels of skills that you need or experiences that you need. Whereas in an indie studio, everybody needs to help out in everything.
Right.
So you get to learn about, the difficulties of running the game, what are the problems, why they make certain decisions and things like that a lot easier than a AAA studio. So for those that are in the indie game, they are exposed to a lot more about the business. And also at the same time, it's more suitable for those people who, get bored or tired with doing the same thing over and over again and wants the opportunity to experiment or to try new things. So so that is the key thing about for indies. A lot of time, most of the people that gets to sit at the higher end of the AAA studios, truthfully, are actually people from indie studios that became successful
and managed to grow the
managed to grow the indie into a larger company. Then maybe they can either stay with this company or move on to a higher position in a AAA studio. Yeah.
Okay. So having been in the industry, you've been in the industry for almost forever.
No, since year 2000, so it's about 18 plus almost 19 years now. Yeah.
Okay, and you've seen various experiences, various scopes, various roles. My question now is that you're a guy who wears two hats. So on the one hand, you're working with game studios, still are, and on the other hand, you are doing part-time education.
Yes.
So, I guess what did you do to come to that decision point?
Okay, it was quite by accident actually. When I came out to start my own company, one of my key goals actually is to try and grow this game industry, to make the industry actually a viable industry in Malaysia. In a way, it's not fully altruistic, okay? Because to me, as a game developer myself, if the industry grows, it's better for me. Okay, yeah. So, as well. So, one of the goals that I wanted to do was to actually grow the industry as much as possible. So, for that, I work with a lot of people from MDEC and things like that, and other people that are in the government agencies, other small companies,
or associations.
Associations, right? Yeah. So not many. Actually, there's not much associations in Malaysia itself at that time. So that was a bit hard. I work mostly with government agencies.
Okay.
So we, you can say, a lot of community service there. So I offered my services, help them to consult on certain things. When they wanted to start to do game development courses, I also helped them a bit on identifying what are the skill sets and all those things required to help them to identify what sort of curriculum that is needed for the courses and things like that. So due to my work there, I was offered a job as a lecturer because at that point of time, not many people in this industry actually has the skill sets to be able to teach the subjects that the game industry requires. So, but at the same time, I did not want to leave the industry because, like I said, this industry is an industry that changes very, very, very fast. Every year, new technology, new concepts, new ideas comes up. So I want to keep a hand in there.
Right.
So that's the reason why. And at the same time, I want to help the industry grow. And as the person who recruited me said, the best way to help the industry grow is to teach. So I decided to do the lecturing part-time at the university. Yeah.
And I mean, you've spent quite a significant amount of time also in teaching.
Yes, I have. Yeah, since I think 2009, 2010, around there. Yeah. When I first started teaching, it was with Lim Kok Wing. Yeah. School of Technology, Creative Technology. And then a few years after that, I was asked to join KDU instead. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, both local but well-recognized brands of education.
Yeah, and I'm glad to say that KDU is now probably one of the most recognized college for games development in Southeast Asia region.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, here's one thing I want to ask or suggest, or perhaps you can give some insight. You've been sort of helping and growing the Malaysia industry for so long, game development industry so long. And yet, there's also the question of electronic distribution allows games to go out there anywhere in the world. So, the question I want to get at is that you're pretty much homegrown, but then being the market being international, is there some sort of relevant experience or some sort of experience that you might need to chase for to make games at that level?
Yep. One of the key things is for games, thanks to digital distribution, thanks to the internet, games is not a local product, cannot really be looked at as a local product anymore. It's an international product. Because why? Even though you are in Malaysia, how many Malaysian games do you play? Majority of games played are from Western countries or is other countries all over the world. So it's a global market. Games is a global market. You can't look at it as, I'm just going to cater purely for my local market, especially in Malaysia, because we have such a small population compared to most other countries. All right. So what happened is, if you want to be successful as a game developer, you need to be able to compete with those international game companies.
Right.
Those AAA games are your competitors. Because why? Most of the people playing games here are going to look at that. And for the players, and I think most people here are also game players themselves, you always want to pick the best game possible to spend your time and effort on. And that reflects back.
I mean, the player's economy is time, the gamer's economy is cash.
Yes. exactly. So that is the thing. So if you have a choice to play a, well, I won't say crappy, but not very well made game, let's say a C product compared to a triple A game, and if they cost the same, which will you choose? Right. So we can't look at it as, oh, I'm making a Malaysian product, I don't need to care about the rest of the world, because Malaysians are global gamers. We play games from all over the world, all over the country. The accessibility is so easy, and the cost is now going down. So the price of playing games have dropped. So if you are not good enough to compete with the global market, it's going to be very hard. Now, compared to certain other countries, let's say Thailand, or okay, let's take Thailand or China for example. They have an advantage. Okay, because their language is difficult to learn, and not many people in their countries are as fluent in international or global language, common language like English. So what they have is they actually have a language barrier that helps them to gather more market. Second is because their countries have a huge population that is many times that of Malaysia. So because of that, by creating games specifically for their language in their own country, their internal market is large enough for them to sustain. Japan is also another example of that. Yeah. But Malaysia, unfortunately, we do not have that. So that is a slight disadvantage here. So we have to be even better.
I mean, it sounds like it's a high benchmark, but the trade-off is that being able to produce at the high benchmark then generates back the value, the competitive value.
Yes. In fact, I would say that it's a good thing is that the result of that needing to match that high benchmark has made Malaysia one of the biggest countries for outsourcing in the world. There are companies here that do outsource work for huge IPs and brands from other countries, especially from Japan, US, and all those things. So, and we'll probably be seeing the same for games as well.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that high benchmark is good, but everybody needs to also put in the effort to reach that benchmark and quality.
Okay. All right. So looking to the future, okay. On one hand, you say that there's many new technologies, both hardware, software. Some of them been in the incoming pipeline, like VR's been in development. I've since that, like over 10 years, but it has not reached that level of maturity. So I guess this question is about looking forward. Okay, the rapid change in industry, which you highlight. How do you see the landscape in how might you see the landscape?
How might I see
the landscape of the industry?
Okay, mobility will probably become a very big factor. Okay, even now there are still gaming on consoles as well as for PC. However, the way people game is changing. When I was still studying, okay, we normally game from home. Because we are using PCs and consoles and things like that.
Or a cyber cafe.
Yeah, or cyber cafes, yes, of course. So what happens is now that games have become more mobile, okay, mobility is there. We can game from anywhere.
All right.
But at the same time, these platforms for mobile gaming are because they are for mobility's sake, much lower specification as those. So games became simpler for that and all that. So the way we use games now is very different. In the past, when we want to play a game, we sit down for at least 2-3 hours to play the game. Now you can play a game 100 times a day, but in minutes. 2-3 minutes. Same way people use Facebook. Okay, so the way people are using games are changing, and the mobile way of playing is actually increasing. As mobile technology become more complex and sophisticated, and they become more powerful, they will also be able to create games for mobile or mobile type games that equals or maybe even exceed PC and console games to a certain extent. Okay, like for example, the Switch.
Right.
Yeah, they are now even focusing on, it's not just a console, but you can actually unplug it and take it around with you as a mobile game. And the quality is the same between the two of them. So that is where I see for the near future, that's where the direction of it will be going.
Mobility.
Yeah, mobility. And which means that if you want to go into games development, especially for technical side, learn up web technologies. Because for mobile, the base technology for mobile is actually web.
And not so much immersion like AR, VR.
Yeah, not so much immersion.
The direction is going towards mobility and not so much deep immersion.
Yeah. The reason is for the near future.
Okay.
The first key thing is mobility. Mobile technology is already commercially available at a very cheap price. Okay. And it's accessible. Almost everyone has it. The problem I'm seeing with VR specifically is the technology is very much like a console game thing. You need to have that special equipment in order to play the game, and the equipment at this point is too expensive
and hasn't sufficiently matured.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So until they can find a way to provide this technology at a much cheaper rate, it's going to have a very hard time to compete with players that are already on the mobile platform that they already have access to. Probably the best way that VR is going is with the using the mobile phone as the VR helmet thing. So that is probably the most accessible form of VR now. Otherwise, you have to spend 600-700 ringgit on
for a headset and the base stations and such.
Yes, exactly. So that is where the difficulty is for VR.
That's some industry insight.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've covered a lot from when you got your skills, when you had your first ideas, when you got your skills, and a lot about yourself in the industry as a veteran of over almost 19 years, right? Yeah. And also the way forward. I guess what I want to do is I want to take it back to a personal level.
Okay.
And what I want to ask is that this is towards the closing which I want to put this.
Okay.
I want you to share your advice. Is that the three questions for that I always ask for the show set is for the person who has the idea of coming into games, what advice might you have for them?
Okay, if you want to create a game,
maybe
you want to come into the game industry.
The idea first.
All right. There are a few ways you can do this. Okay, one is if you have a lot of money, you can try and start your own game studio. Okay. You want to make a game, Okay. But not many people have that opportunity.
Probably not at a very young age, which I'm targeting which my audience start.
Okay. The second thing is to join a game company. Now, to join a game company, there are certain skill sets you need to do. First of all, this industry has several streams. Okay. So there is the game art, where you do 3D animation, 2D graphics, special effects, visual effects, things like that. Then there is design. Now, this design is not art, but actually more on product design. We call them game design. So game design, which is what I specialize in, is where you create the system of the game.
Right.
So game designers need to know art as well as programming, because you are designing a software product. Okay. Then the third major stream is programming or game tech. So here is where you learn to use the technologies to code, to look at different types of hardwares that can be useful for you to make games in. And then there are also other areas like game audio and things like that. Now, each of these fields have many skills and many tools that you need to learn to use. But I think most important for whichever field that you want to go into, you need to have a passion in wanting to make games. Okay, that is very important because, like I said before, this industry is tough. Okay, a game that a person finish playing in 3 days, you may spend a whole year making. All right, that's the amount of work that equates to that game that you play, and not just one person, but a team of maybe 5-6 people, one whole year to make a game that a player will finish in 3 days. Okay, so you need the passion to be able to push through all those things. And since this industry is also high risk, you know, it needs a lot of money, and then takes a long time before that money starts coming back in. There will be hard days ahead. That's why I said, like last time when we started working, it was like 12 hours to 16 hours a day work and things like that. Okay, you need the passion to push you through that. Second is you need to want to keep learning, to keep improving yourself, because this industry keeps changing so fast. Right. New technology, new tools, new concepts, new ideas. Everything changes a lot. And the platforms that new platforms that keep coming up are so much. If you're not the type that wants to keep in touch with the industry to learn what new things are coming out, you're going to start lagging behind.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and on top of the skills you already have, a lot of this new technology may require new skills.
Right.
So you have to be able to learn on your own. Okay. You can't expect other people to teach you all the time. You need to be able to find answers on your own, ask questions, research. Those are skills that are very useful and important. And then finally, of course, you need to have the ability to solve problems well. Because the truth is, making games from programming languages, especially in the past, now not so much, there are special tools for making games now. But in the past, and even now to a certain extent, most programming languages were not created to make games.
Right.
Okay, and one reason why a lot of games is something that a lot of game developers sometimes joke about is the reason that games have so much bugs is because we are actually breaking the code to make it do what the game needs. Okay, so there's a lot of creativity. Even if you're a programmer, it's not just following lines of codes. How you use those codes, how you juggle those codes, break them apart, put them back together in order to do what you want the game to do, okay, in unexpected ways. Okay, you need to be good at solving problems, identifying problems, solving it, finding solutions. So I will say that these are some of the critical things you need as a games developer.
All right. I mean, okay. That is actually a couple of questions that you kind of answer all three together. Because the questions I was asking is, you know, how, for one, with the idea, how might they approach coming into the industry or thinking about the industry, and followed by, okay, how might one take it from idea to skills? Like, who might they learn? There's some, you know, teachers or the mentors. But and the last one is about from taking. Now that you've got the skills, how do you approach the industry? What mindset or such? And you've covered all three. One shot.
Yeah, I can expand a bit on the thing. Like, for example, teachers and skills. Like I said earlier on, most people who are in the industry are always willing to help newcomers. All right? As long as you don't ask stupid questions and you have already thought through and tried to figure out the solution yourself.
Right.
Okay, you can show that. You're always willing to help to expand on that. So, for whichever discipline that you choose that you want to go into, whether it's arts or programming or design or sound, you can talk to people. You can talk to actual developers in those particular fields. Go to them, ask them questions, or go to their blogs, ask them questions. Like I said, when I was first learning this, there was no one to ask.
Right.
So the internet is a great source of information. And like I said also, games are also a very global phenomena. Products are sold globally. So you can get information from not just people in Malaysia, but from all over the world.
Yep.
There are communities like gamedev.net, okay, Gamasutra, where you can actually go there, post even Stack Overflow and things like that. You can post questions there and people will try to answer you as best as they can. And even if there might be multiple solutions, they will argue it out there. You can actually see and learn even more from that.
Right.
So that is one of the areas where you can try to upgrade your skills. Another thing will be for skills wise, games is a craft.
Okay.
Which means in crafts, you can't study it. You can't just study it. Studying is one part of it. You have to do, you have to practice. It's very, very practical. So try making your own games. Learn tools that game developers use. There are things like game makers, Unity engine and things like this, where they are already specially made tools for making games. Okay, stencil. Learn these tools up, okay, and try making your own simple game. Tutorials can be found online on YouTube and things like that. The best game developers are those that actually show that they have the initiative to actually start making games on their own. You don't have to be super beautiful, but the fact that you are able to make games, okay, or try making games shows those three, core values that we look for: independence, ability to solve problems, and ability to learn on your own. These are key things that many game development studios look for on top of your skill sets. So keep practicing making games. Okay. One of the things that most people look for when they are hiring game developers is they will ask you, have you made a game before?
Right.
Have you completed a game before? Because that process of making a game, okay, there are many things that you can't explain by word.
I mean, it's a very involved.
Yes.
It's a very involved thing, and best is you have your product to demonstrate it.
Yes.
To demonstrate the competencies.
Yeah. And another thing to add to that is because every game project you do is like a living thing on its own, a unique process on its own. It will have its own different problems, own difficulties, different solutions. Even if you try to remake that game, you'll never work out the same way as the first time. Okay, there will be differences. So each process is like an artistic process. It's like when you ask a sculptor, is it the same every time you sculpt? Your second is different. The whole process becomes different. So that's the difference between craft and making something normal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have to experience that.
All right. Now, so that covers the three advice which I asked. The last part I give to you is that do you have any your final word? Do you have a final word and piece of advice or shameless plug? Something that you want to put out there and promote yourself.
Okay. Compared to where I was 18 plus years ago, for you guys to get into the game industry now is very simple. It's a lot easier. We had to go through what we call the University of HK, Hard Knocks, not Hong Kong. Okay. So at this time in Malaysia, especially, the game industry is growing, not just in Malaysia, but all over the world. Every country is now interested in it as a very viable career. So there's a lot more places for you to access information. Places like, shameless plug, KDU, where we have one of the best games development programs regionally. And there are also other institutions that also develop games. There are also quite a number of game developers here now, including Metronomic, whose founder is lead game designer for Final Fantasy.
Okay.
Okay, and so you have a lot of resources now, a lot more opportunities now to come into the games industry. So it's not as difficult as it was used to be last time.
Right.
There's a lot more capability and resources you can tap on to become a games developer. Yeah. But the most important thing, if you want to do games industry, start making your own games.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't wait until people teach you first, or you say, I don't know how to make, so I can't make now. That's not an excuse. You want to be a games developer, you need to have the initiative to start yourself.
I mean, even with the start of pen and paper, like your classic days, lah.
Yes, even with that, it's very useful because those RPG books write out how their system works and things like that. You learn a lot from that as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank
you. With that, I close out this episode of Plusma-cast, again featuring Michael Ooi, a veteran of the games development industry in Malaysia. So thank you very much for your insight, which is very deep insight.
Oh, thank you very much.
And with that, thank you for watching the Plusma-cast. If you want to get in touch with Michael to learn more, to ask him more about the show or more about his experience, you can check the end slide or look into the description for details. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.